Read it, Madison, Patricia said. Your mother deserves to hear it from heaven. Maddie's hand shook. Dean stared at his plate. When I said, "She doesn't have to," my stepdaughter looked at me and said, "You're not my mom." My name is Natalie Harper Harlan. I was 37, a rehab nurse in Raleigh, North Carolina. My work taught me not to trust speeches. Healing came from small, steady actions. That was how I tried to live with Dean Harlan. Dean was respected outside our home. Inside it, whenever something hurt, he had one answer. Mom means well. His mother, Patricia Harlan, had built an empire behind that sentence. She was silver-haired, soft-spoken, and precise. In our house, sweetness was never the same as kindness. Dean's first wife, Meredith, had died 4 years earlier. She left one daughter, Madison, though everyone called her Maddie. 15, straight-A student, volleyball player. She heard every lie adults wrapped in velvet. Maddie made one thing clear from the beginning. I was not her mother. I never fought her on that. Meredith was not a chair at a table that needed replacing. I was simply the woman who drove Maddie to volleyball when Dean was stuck in Durham, remembered appointments, and still made dinner when she barely touched it. That dinner happened 1 week before Thanksgiving. Patricia called it a quiet family remembrance. Nothing in Patricia's house was quiet by accident. The dining room smelled of turkey, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. White candles burned near Meredith's photograph. Brooke had arranged place cards like a gala. Maddie sat across from me, staring at the folded paper beside her plate. She did not look like a girl who had written to her mother. She looked like a test she had already failed. Patricia waited until Dean carved the turkey. Then she touched Maddie's wrist. "Now, sweetheart, read your letter to your mother." Maddie unfolded the page. Her voice was thin, then stiff, too polished for a girl holding back tears. "Dad and Grandma are the only ones protecting what Mom left me." The word protecting cracked in her mouth. I set my fork down. "Maddie, honey, you don't have to read that if you're not ready." Patricia placed her water glass on the table. "Natalie," she said, "don't make Meredith's memory about you, dear." Dean did not move. Brooke lowered her eyes, but I saw her mouth tighten. Maddie looked from Patricia to Dean, then to me. Her face twisted, not with cruelty, but with panic searching for somewhere to land. "Stop acting like you care," she snapped. "You're not my mom." The room went still. I looked at her first. Not Dean, not Patricia. Her. "I know," I said. Patricia leaned back, almost satisfied. At least the child knows her place. That was when I understood. Patricia was not grieving Meredith. She was using Meredith as a lock on every door in that house. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. "I know I'm not her mother," I said quietly, "but I am still the adult in this room, and adults don't use a child's grief as a weapon." No one reached for turkey after that. The candles kept burning over a table where Maddie had just been made to bleed for everyone else's comfort. Dean did not touch my arm hard enough to bruise me. He was too careful for that. Men like Dean knew the difference between force and evidence. He stood from the table, smiled once at his mother, then said, "Natalie, outside. Now." The back porch overlooked a dark lawn and bare crepe myrtles. Raleigh had not turned bitter cold yet, but the air had teeth. Behind the glass, Brooke stacked plates as if dinner could be rescued by good manners. Dean shut the door. "What was that?" he asked. I looked through the window. Maddie was still at the table, shoulders tight. "That was your daughter being asked to read words she didn't write." Dean rubbed his forehead. "Mom was trying to honor Meredith." "No, she was making Maddie perform grief like a church recital." His jaw shifted. Dean had sold office parks to men who mistook silence for power. He used that same silence at home. "You embarrassed my mother," he said. "Your mother embarrassed a child." She is a grieving grandmother, and Maddie is a grieving girl. There is a difference. He stepped closer. "You keep forgetting where the lines are." "Then tell me the lines, Dean. I can pick Maddie up from volleyball when you are in Durham. I can sign emergency forms when you forget. I can pack allergy medicine and sit through parent night. But when she is cornered at a table, I am supposed to become wallpaper? His eyes hardened. You are not her mother. There it was. Clean, convenient. Always ready. I know that, I said. Maddie knows that. Why does everyone keep using it like a verdict? Dean looked away first. Inside, Patricia stood near the sink, calm as a Sunday bulletin. Brooke glanced through the window, then turned away. Dean softened his voice, which somehow made it worse. If you want this marriage to work, you have to respect Meredith's place. I have never tried to take Meredith's place. Then stop acting like you have a say in everything. I don't want a say in everything. I want one adult in that room to say no when your daughter is being hurt. He opened the door without answering. That was how Dean ended arguments. He returned to the room where his mother had already decided he was right. Later that night, back at our house, Maddie's bedroom door stayed closed. No music, no phone call. Just the broken breathing of a child trying to cry quietly. I stood in the hallway with my hand lifted, then lowered it. Maddie had not asked for me. Barging in would only prove Patricia's story. So I went downstairs, made peppermint tea, added honey the way Maddie liked when her stomach hurt, and set it outside her door with a sleeve of crackers. On a small sticky note, I wrote, "No talking required." Then I walked away. In the kitchen, Dean loosened his tie and opened the refrigerator like we were any other married couple at the end of a long family dinner. "You're making this harder than it has to be," he said. I rinsed the spoon under warm water. "No," I said. "I think I'm the only one willing to admit it's already hard." He did not answer. The next morning, the mug was empty. The crackers were gone. The note had been folded and left beside the baseboard. The call came while I was teaching a stroke patient how to trust his left foot again. My phone buzzed twice in my scrub pocket. I ignored it the first time. Nurses learned early that every vibration felt urgent until a human being in front of you was trying not to fall. Then the rehab desk called my name. "Natalie, St. Albans Prep is on line 2. They said it's about Madison Harlan." I picked up before the sentence finished. "This is Mrs. Harlan." A woman with a careful voice said Maddie had become acutely distressed after an English assignment. Dean was listed first, but he had not answered. I was the emergency contact after him. "I'm on my way," I said. St. Albans sat behind black iron gates and old oaks, the kind of school where parents donated buildings and children learned to smile before they learned to breathe. I parked crooked, still wearing my hospital badge, and walked through the front office smelling like antiseptic and coffee. Maddie was sitting outside the counselor's office with her knees pressed together. Her volleyball hoodie swallowed her hands. Her face was pale except for the red around her eyes. When she saw me, shame came before anger. "I didn't ask for you," she said. "I know," I answered. "The school did." That stopped her for half a second. Mrs. Linda Holloway, the school counselor, brought me inside. She was in her mid-50s, with reading glasses on a chain, and the expression of a woman who had watched too many families call harm a private matter. "Mrs. Harlan," she said, "I have to be careful about what I discuss." "I understand." She had a panic response during an essay prompt. The class was asked to write about a woman who shaped their life. My stomach tightened. Linda looked toward the closed door, lowering her voice. "Madison has carried complicated grief for a long time. She had support in place. Recently, that support appears to have stopped." I blinked. "Stopped?" I can't speak beyond my role here, but the school had documentation of grief counseling after her mother's passing. We have not received updated continuity information. Dean had told me Maddie was still being cared for. Patricia had told church friends the family believed in healing with dignity. Apparently, dignity meant silence. "Who ended it?" I asked. Linda's face changed just enough to answer without answering. "That is a question for her legal guardian." "Dean, not me." never me when it mattered. I thanked her because I knew she had already said as much as she safely could. On the way out, Maddie walked beside me like she was being escorted from a crime scene. At the car, she reached for the back door. "You can sit up front," I said. "I'm fine." She was not fine. But fine was the word people used when they had been trained not to need anything. She climbed into the passenger seat without looking at me. For several blocks, the only sound was the turn signal. Then she said, "Don't tell Grandma." "I'm telling your dad the school called." "That's not what I said." I kept both hands on the wheel. "No, it isn't." She stared out the window. "Grandma says therapists make kids hate their families." Well, that sounds like something an adult says when they're afraid of what a kid might tell the therapist. Maddie's mouth opened, then closed. That night, Dean came home late with his tie loose and his temper already waiting. "St. Albans called me," I said. "Maddie had a panic attack." "She got overwhelmed. Teenagers do. She needs counseling again." His eyes sharpened. "Again?" "Yes, again. Why was it stopped?" Dean set his keys down too loudly. "Because she doesn't need strangers digging up her mother every week." "Did Maddie say that? Or did your mother?" His face went cold. Mom and I agreed it was time for her to move forward. "She is 15, Dean. Did anyone ask her what moving forward felt like?" "You are not her mother, Natalie." The words landed exactly where he aimed them. I looked down the hallway toward Maddie's closed door. For the first time, I wondered how many decisions had been made in this house with her name on them and her voice nowhere near the room. Dean did not explain the counseling. He simply moved around the house like the conversation had been folded away and filed under "wife being emotional." That was one of his gifts. He could make a serious thing feel unreasonable by refusing to stand near it. So I stopped pushing. At the hospital, I watched patients relearn balance by studying pressure, timing, weight. You did not catch a fall by staring at the face. You watched the hip, the foot, the hand reaching too late. At home, I began watching the small things. Dean started taking calls in the garage. Not in his home office with the framed certificates and the leather chair. Not in the kitchen, where he used to pace while talking through deals. The garage. Between the leaf blower, Maddie's old bike, and stacked Christmas bins Patricia had labeled in perfect black marker. The first time, I heard only pieces. "Wade, I know." Then a pause. "If that lease doesn't close before mid-December, I'm exposed." I was carrying laundry past the door. I did not stop. I did not press my ear against wood. But the words followed me upstairs. Exposed. Dean sold commercial property. Men like him use words like opportunity, leverage, upside. They did not use exposed unless something underneath had started to rot. 2 days later, his Rolex was gone. It was a steel Datejust he had worn to every business lunch, church donor breakfast, and school fundraiser since I met him. He used to tap it when someone arrived late, as if even time reported to him. At dinner, his wrist looked strangely bare. "Where's your watch?" I asked. He cut into his chicken without looking up. "Sold it." Maddie glanced at him. "You love that watch." "Well, I got tired of flashy things." That was not Dean. Dean did not get tired of symbols. He polished them. Maddie pushed green beans around her plate. "Does that mean I can still go with the travel team in January?" Dean's fork stopped. "We'll talk about that later." "It's due next week." "I said later, Madison." She shrank back, and I saw it then. Money had entered the house, but nobody had said its name. The envelope came on a Tuesday. I brought the mail in after work and sorted it by the coffee maker. A grocery flyer, 2 Christmas catalogs, a bill from Duke Energy. Then a white envelope from a bank in Charlotte. Across the middle, in formal black type, was printed, "Meredith Reed Harlan, Education and Welfare Trust." I had seen enough medical charts to know when a label mattered. I did not open it. I did not hold it longer than necessary. I set it on the counter with the rest of the mail. Dean came in from the mudroom 20 minutes later. His eyes found the envelope before he found me. He picked it up too fast, not casually, not like a man collecting paperwork, like a man snatching a match before it hit gasoline. "What is that?" I asked. "Trust paperwork." "For Maddie?" His mouth tightened. "It's a small fund Meredith left. Nothing for you to worry about." "I didn't say it was for me." He slid the envelope under a stack of folders. "Then don't make it about you." There it was again, the family sentence. Whenever I asked about a child, they accused me of asking for myself. That night, Patricia called while Dean was upstairs. Her voice was warm enough to frost glass. "Natalie, dear, I hope you understand that Meredith made arrangements for her daughter. Some things belong to a mother's wishes." "I respect Meredith's wishes," I said. "Good. Then let the people she trusted handle them." After we hung up, I stood alone in the kitchen. The house smelled like dish soap and roasted garlic. Ordinary smells, safe smells. But I knew what I had seen. A man hiding calls in the garage, a watch sold without pride, a girl told to wait on volleyball fees, a bank envelope taken like evidence. I opened a drawer, took out a small notebook, and wrote the date. Not because I knew what Dean had done, because I knew what fear looked like when it wore a wedding ring. The first time I saw Samuel Reed, he was standing under a bare oak tree outside the Cameron Village Library with a paper bag in both hands. He looked too dressed up for a Saturday afternoon. Brown wool coat, polished shoes, white hair combed neatly back. Not rich-looking exactly. More like a man who had practiced dignity because grief had taken everything else. Maddie saw him before I did. Her whole body changed. Not fear, not surprise, a kind of trained distance. "Who is that?" I asked. "Nobody." The man lifted one hand, not high, just enough to be seen. Maddie's mouth tightened. "Mr. Reed. Not Grandpa. Not even Samuel." I remembered the last name from the bank envelope. Meredith Reed Harlan, Maddie's mother. He came closer but stopped several feet away, careful not to crowd her. "Madison," he said softly. "I was hoping I might catch you before practice." Maddie stared at the paper bag. "Grandma says you only show up when Mom's money is involved." The words hit him so hard he almost lowered his eyes. Almost. "I brought your mother's copy of The Secret Garden," he said. "And oatmeal raisin cookies from Perkins. She used to like them when she was your age." Maddie's face flickered. Then the wall came back. "I have homework." She walked into the library without taking the bag. I did not follow her right away. I stood there with a stranger who seemed to know too much and have no right to be trusted. "You are Natalie," he said. "I am. I am Samuel Reed. Meredith was my daughter." I figured. He nodded once, as if he deserved the coldness. "I am not here to cause trouble. People usually say that right before they cause it." A tired smile moved across his face. "Fair enough." Through the library glass, Maddie had chosen a table near the young adult shelves. She could see us. That mattered. "There's a coffee shop next door," I said. 10 minutes, where she can still see us." Samuel agreed immediately. That told me something. At the small table, he did not begin with accusations. He set the paper bag between us like an offering he knew might be refused. "I was not a perfect father," he said. "Let's start there." Most liars I had met skipped that part. He told me he had opposed Meredith marrying Dean. He thought Dean was polished and hollow, and Meredith called him judgmental. They argued. Years were wasted. When Meredith got sick, Samuel admitted he missed days at the hospital because pride had made him stupid. "I have paid for that every morning since," he said. Then he opened his coat pocket and took out a small bundle of envelopes tied with blue ribbon. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, notes written in careful block letters to a granddaughter who had never answered. I sent these through Dean's office first, then through Patricia, later certified mail. They said Madison was too fragile. Then they said she didn't want contact. I looked down at the handwriting. Madison. I saw a cardinal today and thought of your mom. Madison, your mother burned apple pie every Thanksgiving until she was 22. Madison, you do not have to write back. I just want you to know I am here. My throat tightened despite myself. Why are you telling me? I asked. Because you looked at Madison at that dinner like she was a child, not a battlefield. I said nothing. Samuel leaned forward, his voice dropped. Meredith created an education and welfare trust for Madison, $675,000 for school, therapy, medical care, enrichment, and her future. Dean is the primary trustee. The room seemed to grow quieter. And you? I was named as a trust protector with limited oversight. After the funeral, Dean convinced me to sign the waiver, said Madison needed stability, said my presence reopened wounds. You signed it? His eyes reddened. I had just buried my only child. That did not make him innocent, but it made him human. Recently, he said, I requested an accounting. Dean's attorney said I no longer had standing. Patricia told a mutual friend I was harassing a grieving child. Outside the window, Maddie turned a page without reading it. I thought of Dean's garage calls, the missing Rolex, the envelope he snatched from the counter. I can't promise you anything, I said. I am not asking you to. But if you're telling the truth, Maddie deserves to know she wasn't abandoned. Samuel closed his eyes for 1 second. That is all I ever wanted her to know. When I returned to the library, Maddie did not look up, but the paper bag sat on her table. And one corner of her mother's old book was already peeking out. Dean was waiting in the kitchen when I came home. Not sitting, waiting. His suit jacket was off, his sleeves rolled to the elbows, and a glass of bourbon sat untouched beside the sink. That was how I knew he was angry. Dean drank to relax. When he left the glass alone, he wanted control more than comfort. Maddie went straight upstairs with her library book tucked against her chest. Dean watched her disappear, then turned to me. You met with Samuel Reed. Not a question. I set my purse on the chair. He was outside the library. You had coffee with him. 10 minutes, in public, where Maddie could see us. His laugh was short and dry. That makes it better? It makes it honest. His face changed at that word. Do you have any idea what you've done? He asked. That man has been trying to push his way into Maddie's life for years. Then why does Maddie think he only wants money? Dean's eyes narrowed. Because that is the truth. Is it? Before he answered, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A car door closed. I did not need to look. Patricia had arrived. She came through the side door without knocking, wearing a camel coat and pearl earrings, as if emotional emergencies required accessories. Her perfume reached me before her voice did. Natalie, dear, she said, we need to talk before this becomes uglier. I looked at Dean. You called your mother? She is part of this family. So am I when laundry needs folding. Patricia removed her gloves finger by finger, slow, controlled, a woman making sure the room moved at her pace. Samuel Reed is not a harmless old man, she said. He hurt Meredith deeply. I believe he did. That answer surprised her. I continued. He admitted that before he said anything about you. Dean looked away. Patricia's mouth tightened, then softened again. Grief makes people rewrite themselves. Men like Samuel always return when there's something to claim. Did he send Maddie letters? The room went quiet. Not because the question was loud, because it was precise. Patricia placed her gloves on the counter. Madison was too fragile for confusion. Cards from her grandfather are confusion? A child in grief needs clean lines. No, I said. A child in grief needs safe adults. Dean stepped in. Natalie, stop. But I had spent too long watching this family turn every closed door into a kindness. Did Meredith say Samuel should be kept away? I asked. Patricia lifted her chin. Meredith trusted us. That is not what I asked, Dean's voice sharpened. You don't get to interrogate my mother. I'm asking why a 15-year-old girl was taught to call her own grandfather Mr. Reed. Patricia's eyes finally hardened. The warmth drained and something older showed underneath. Love doesn't make you family, dear. Blood does. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the sentence exposed her completely. Then why are the people with blood so afraid of the truth? Dean slammed his palm on the counter. Maddie's bedroom door creaked upstairs. Patricia heard it too. Immediately, her face changed back into grandmotherly sorrow. Now look what you've done, she whispered. I turned toward the stairwell. Maddie stood halfway down, one hand on the banister, her face pale in the hallway light. Nobody spoke. Then Patricia opened her arms slightly. Sweetheart, go back to bed. Adults are handling this. Maddie did not move. Her eyes went from Patricia to Dean, then to me. I could not read them. Fear, maybe, or the first thin crack in a story she had been handed too many times. I did not ask her to come down. I did not make myself the safer choice out loud. I only said, you don't have to stand here for this. Maddie looked at Patricia one more time, then turned and went back upstairs. Patricia picked up her gloves. You are making a mistake, Natalie. No, I said. I think I finally stopped making yours. For once, Dean had no sentence ready. Brooke Harlan had always called me sweetheart. Not because she loved me. Brooke used sweetness the way some women use perfume. Enough to fill a room, not enough to mean anything. She worked part-time at St. Albans Preparatory as a development coordinator. Her job was not teaching, counseling, or discipline. She helped with donor lunches, silent auctions, alumni newsletters, and the kind of parent events where people pretended cupcakes were community. But Brooke understood something dangerous. You did not need authority to poison a room. You only needed access. The first email reached me through Linda Holloway. She did not forward it directly, but during a short call, she said, Mrs. Harlan, there has been some family context shared with the school. Family context, I repeated. That Madison may be feeling pressured at home. I closed my eyes. By whom? Linda paused. The concern mentioned you. The next morning, I was asked to come in for a meeting. I wore navy slacks and a sweater instead of scrubs. Not because I had anything to prove, but because I knew people judged women by fabric before facts. The conference room at St. Albans had a polished table, framed student art, and a silver tray of bottled water no one touched. Linda sat to my left. An assistant head of school sat across from me with a yellow legal pad. Brooke sat beside him. She gave me a sad little smile. Natalie, she said softly, I hate that we have to talk like this. I looked at her. Then don't enjoy it so much. Her smile disappeared for half a second. The assistant head cleared his throat. We're not here to accuse anyone. We only want to make sure Madison feels emotionally safe. Good, I said. So do I. Brooke folded her hands. Madison has been through so much. Sometimes, when a new spouse enters after loss, boundaries get blurred. A new spouse. Not stepmother, not adult caregiver, not even family. Just the woman who entered. Linda watched quietly, her pen still. Brooke continued. There have been moments where Natalie inserted herself into grief conversations that really belonged to Meredith's family. I turned toward her. You mean when Patricia handed Maddie a letter she did not write and told her to read it at dinner? The assistant head looked up. Brooke's face tightened. That is a private family matter. Then why is it in a school meeting? Silence moved across the table. Brooke recovered quickly. Because Madison's emotional state affects her education. Then why was her counseling stopped? Linda's pen finally moved. Brooke looked offended on cue. That decision belongs to Dean. And Patricia? Natalie, this is exactly the problem. Brooke's voice went soft again. You keep positioning yourself against the people Madison actually belongs to. The sentence was clean enough for a school file and cruel enough for a kitchen knife. I felt heat rise in my face, but I did not give her the performance she wanted. I turned to the assistant head. Is Maddie safe? I asked. Or is everyone here protecting adult comfort? He shifted in his chair. Linda looked at me then, really looked. Something in her expression changed. Not agreement, maybe, but attention. Brooke leaned back, wounded. I knew this would become hostile. No, I said. Hostile is teaching a child that telling the truth is betrayal. I stood before my voice could shake. For the record, I have never asked Maddie to call me mom. I have never read her journal, never entered her room without permission, never told her to stop loving Meredith. I have driven her to practice, kept her emergency medication in my purse, and answered when this school called because her father did not pick up. The assistant head wrote something down. Brooke did not. She did not need notes. She had already written her version before I walked in. Outside, the campus looked perfect. Brick paths, clipped hedges, chapel bells shining in the winter sun. Every inch of it said order. But inside that building, I understood the Harlans had found a cleaner way to punish me. They were not going to scream. They were going to document me into a villain. I sat in my car for a full minute before starting the engine. Then I searched for the number I had saved months earlier, but hoped never to use. Renee Whitcomb, family and civil attorney. When her receptionist answered, I said, "My name is Natalie Harlan. I need an appointment before my husband's family turns concern into a record." Renee Whitcomb's office smelled like paper, lemon polish, and old coffee. No posters, no soft music. Just a long desk, 2 chairs, and a woman in her 50s with silver at her temples and eyes that had watched decent people make stupid choices under pressure. "Tell me what you know," she said. "Then tell me how you know it." That second sentence mattered. So I started carefully. Thanksgiving dinner, Maddie's letter, the school call, the stopped counseling, Samuel Reed outside the library, Dean's garage calls, the trust envelope, Brooke's meeting at St. Albans. Renee interrupted only when the line between fact and feeling began to blur. "Did you open the bank envelope?" "No." "Did you access your husband's email?" "No." "Did you record anyone?" "No." "Good," she said. "Keep it that way." Then she leaned back. "Mrs. Harlan, I need you to understand something. You are not Madison's legal guardian in the way her father is. You cannot walk into court and ask a judge to give you control over her therapy, school, or trust." I know. Knowing it emotionally and respecting it legally are different things. That stung because she was right. Renee tapped her pen once. But you are not powerless. You can protect yourself from defamation. You can document events you personally witnessed. You can preserve communication sent to you. And if a minor beneficiary's trust is being mishandled, Samuel Reed may have a path to request accounting. May? Law is not a sermon, Mrs. Harlan. It is a locked room. We look for the door, not the feeling. She turned her yellow legal pad toward me. No hacking, no private devices, no taking papers from Dean's office, no coaching Madison. Save school emails, save text sent directly to you. Record dates, times, places, exact words. Write what you saw, not what you assume. It was the opposite of what Rage wanted. Rage wanted me to march into Patrice's house and lay every lie on her polished table. Rage wanted Dean cornered, exposed, humiliated. Renee seemed to read that on my face. "A clean fight is slower," she said. "But when it lands, it stays." Dear listener, if Natalie's position makes your blood rise, please leave a like and write in the comments what you would tell her to do next. Your advice may be exactly what a woman like her would need to hear. Stay with this story, because Maddie has not said her strongest truth yet. Renee gave me one more warning before I left. Do not turn Madison into your witness. She texts me sometimes, I said. Then answer like an adult, not like a lawyer. If she gives you something important, preserve it. Do not pull more out of her. That was when I understood what made this different from revenge. Revenge would use Maddie the way they used her. Protection meant refusing to do that, even when it made my case harder. On my way home, I stopped at a pharmacy and left with a blue notebook. It cost $3.49. At the kitchen counter that night, while Dean took another call outside, I opened to the first page. I wrote the date, then one sentence. Do not fight like them. The pen left a tiny dent in the paper. I ran my finger over it and felt, for the first time in weeks, something steadier than anger. Not peace, a line. The statement arrived on a Thursday afternoon, folded inside an email from Renee, with no extra words except, call me before you respond. I was in the hospital break room, still in my scrubs, with 12 hours of other people's pain under my skin. Someone had left a plastic wreath on the vending machine. A radio near the sink played Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas in a voice too cheerful for fluorescent lights. I opened the attachment. My name appeared 6 times. Natalie makes me uncomfortable. Natalie tries to talk about my mom when I don't want her to. Natalie says Grandma's lying. Natalie wants me to choose her. Natalie makes me feel unsafe in my own house. At the bottom was Maddie's signature. Not Madison, Maddie. The way she signed birthday cards at school. My hand went numb around the phone. For a full minute, I could not breathe properly. Not because the words were sharp, but because I recognized the shape of them. Adult sentences wearing a child's handwriting. The statement took every ordinary thing and bent it. Driving her to volleyball became following me everywhere. Peppermint tea became trying to act like my mother. Asking about counseling became forcing me to talk about death. The Thanksgiving dinner became Natalie ruining Grandma's tribute. I had been called many things in my life. Stubborn, too blunt, too serious. Nurses heard complaints from families who needed somewhere to throw fear. But unsafe was different. Unsafe could travel. Unsafe could sit in a school file. Unsafe could reach my job, my license, my marriage, my name. I locked my phone, then unlocked it again, hoping the words might rearrange into something less cruel. They did not. Ruth Penley found me staring at the vending machine like it owed me an answer. Ruth had been a nurse longer than I had been alive, and she could tell the difference between tired and cracked. Who died? She asked. No one. That's rarely true when a woman looks like that. I handed her the phone, not because I wanted gossip, because if I held it alone one more second, I might break something. Ruth read quietly. Her face did not flare with outrage. It settled into something heavier. She write this? She signed it. That is not what I asked. I swallowed hard. I don't know anymore. Ruth sat beside me and gave the phone back. Kids in pain don't always bite the person who hurt them. Sometimes they bite the one close enough to stay. I wanted comfort. That was not comfort. It was worse. It asked me to keep seeing Maddie as a child when my own name was bleeding on paper. By the time I drove home, Christmas lights had come on across our neighborhood. Reindeer in lawns, wreaths on doors, families selling peace from the front porch. Dean was in the kitchen, reading something on his tablet. He looked up with a careful expression, too calm to be innocent. I assume Renee sent it. I took off my coat. You let her sign that? She wanted to be heard. No, she wanted the adults to stop pressing on her ribs. His eyes went flat. You can't accept that she has feelings that don't flatter you. I laughed once. It sounded wrong in the kitchen. Dean, if Maddie had written, I hate Natalie and I never want to speak to her again, I would believe the pain was hers. But that statement sounded like Patricia holding a pen. His chair scraped back. Do not drag my mother into this. She is already in it. He came closer, lowering his voice. There's still a graceful way out of this for you. There it was. not concern, an offer shaped like a warning. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Maddie. I looked toward the ceiling, then back at Dean. I am not going to fight her, I said. She already told the truth. No, I said. She signed something. Those are not always the same thing. Dean's face hardened. I went upstairs without waiting for his answer. Maddie's door was closed. A thin line of light showed beneath it. I did not knock. I did not ask why. I stood there long enough to let my anger pass through me without becoming a weapon. Then I went to my room, opened the blue notebook, and wrote only what I knew. Statement received. Signed by Maddie. Language appears adult. Dean aware before I arrived home. Below that, my pen hovered. Finally, I added one more line. Do not punish the child for the hands around her wrist. The text came at 12:17 a.m. I was sitting on the kitchen floor because the house felt less like mine every time I stood in it. Dean had gone to bed without speaking. The Christmas tree blinked in the living room window, too bright for a room where nobody felt blessed. My phone lit up beside my knee. Maddie. I stared at her name before I opened it. I'm sorry. Then another bubble appeared. Grandma said Dad could lose the house if I didn't sign. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, slower, as if the words might change if I gave them enough chances. There it was. Not everything. Not enough for a judge by itself, but enough to tell me what I already feared. A child had been handed a grown man's panic and a grandmother's guilt, then told to sign her name under my ruin. My first feeling was not triumph, it was sickness. Because for one terrible second, I saw how easy it would be. Screenshot it, send it to Renee. Let it burn through every lie Dean and Patricia had arranged so carefully. Let the school know. Let Brooke choke on her polite little emails. Then I looked toward the stairs. Maddie was 15 years old. She was not evidence with a ponytail. She was a girl alone in a bedroom, apologizing in the dark because daylight in that house belonged to adults who watched her too closely. I typed, "You are not in trouble with me." The reply took almost a minute. I didn't want Dad to lose the house. I closed my eyes. Then another message. Grandma cried. She said Mom would be ashamed if I let strangers take everything. Strangers. Samuel. Me. Anyone who had not been approved by Patricia. I typed carefully, because Renee's warning sat beside me like another person. You do not have to explain tonight. Try to sleep. If you feel unsafe or pressured, tell Mrs. Holloway or a counselor. You deserve an adult who is there only for you. Maddie answered almost immediately. Are you mad? The question did what the statement had not. It broke me. I was mad at Dean, at Patricia, at Brooke, at every polished adult who knew exactly how to make a child feel responsible for a mortgage, a reputation, a dead mother's memory. But not at her. No, I wrote, I am sad this was put on you. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. I didn't mean all of it. I let the phone rest against my chest. In the living room, the tree lights changed from gold to red to green. Pain can borrow your handwriting, I typed. That doesn't mean it owns you. She did not answer after that. I waited 10 minutes, then sent the screenshots to Renee with one line. I did not ask follow-up questions. Her response came at 12:41 a.m. Good. Preserve it. Do not discuss with Dean tonight. I almost laughed. Discussing anything with Dean had become like throwing stones into fog. You heard the impact only when something came back at your face. Still, I did not wake him. I opened the blue notebook instead. 12:17 a.m. Maddie texted apology. Stated Grandma said Dad could lose the house if she did not sign. I responded without asking for more details. My hand shook on the last word. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Then another. I looked up. A small folded paper slid beneath my bedroom door 20 minutes later. I waited until the hallway went quiet before I picked it up. The handwriting was rushed. I didn't mean all of it. Same words as the text, but paper felt different. Paper meant she had stood outside my door and chosen not to run from her own apology. I did not write back. I placed the note inside the blue notebook and sat on the edge of the bed until dawn touched the windows. For the first time, I understood that Maddie was not standing on the other side of the war. She was the ground everyone kept trying to claim. Samuel Reed did not move fast after Maddie's message. That made me trust him more. A man looking for revenge would have kicked the door open by sunrise. Samuel called his attorney instead. Gordon Miles was the kind of lawyer whose voice sounded like a closed file cabinet. Slow, dry, impossible to flatter. Renee spoke with him first. Then she called me. Samuel is filing a petition for accounting, she said. This is not your case, Natalie. Remember that. I know. I'm saying it because you care, and caring people wander into legal traffic. I sat at my kitchen table with the blue notebook open. Dean was upstairs, shower running too long, probably rehearsing whichever version of himself he planned to wear that day. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing unless I ask. Preserve what you have. Do not confront Dean. Do not ask Madison more questions. Let the trust attorney do his job. Let. That word had become the hardest command in my life. Within a week, Gordon Miles filed on Samuel's behalf, asking the court to compel an accounting of the Meredith Reed Harlan Education and Welfare Trust. Because Maddie was still a minor beneficiary, the court could appoint an independent representative for the property dispute. Not someone to replace her father. Not someone to hand me power. Someone to make sure the trust had not been treated like Dean's private wallet. That distinction mattered. People love courtroom stories where one speech fixes everything. Real life moved in forms, deadlines, certified mail, and attorneys saying, "We'll see." Dean received notice on a gray Monday. He came downstairs holding the papers like they had insulted him. "Did you do this?" he asked. I was pouring coffee. My hand did not shake. "No, but you helped." I told the truth to people who had the right to ask for it. His laugh came out bitter. "You have no idea what you're playing with." "I'm not playing." He stepped closer. "That trust exists because Meredith wanted Maddie stable. Then accounting should prove that." For the first time, he had no quick answer. The preliminary review did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces, each one small enough to be denied a loan and heavy enough to crush when stacked together. Charges labeled housing stability, educational environment improvement, family support expense. Those phrases sounded respectable. Dean had always been good at respectable language. But the payments did not match therapy invoices, tuition, medical bills, or volleyball travel fees. Some went through a Harlan business account tied to a stalled commercial property in Durham. Wade Keller's name appeared beside one transfer. I remembered the garage call. If that lease doesn't close before mid-December, I'm exposed. Now the word had a shape. Dean tried to explain before anyone asked him to. He found me in the laundry room of all places while I was folding Maddie's volleyball hoodie. His face looked tired enough to be almost honest. "I borrowed from her future to protect her present," he said. I held the hoodie against my waist. "Say that again, slowly." His eyes flashed. "You think I enjoyed this? You think I wanted to be in this position? I think Maddie asked her volleyball fees and you told her later while money meant for her care was keeping your Durham deal alive." His mouth tightened. "That deal would have protected this family." "No, it would have protected the version of you people clap for." He looked wounded, but only in the way proud men look wounded when someone names the wound they caused. "You don't understand pressure," he said. I thought of patients gripping parallel bars with tears running down their necks. I thought of Maddie apologizing after midnight for a lie adults had placed in her hands. "I understand pressure," I said. "I just don't call it permission." That evening, Maddie came home from practice quieter than usual. She dropped her gym bag by the stairs and asked if her dad was mad at her. The question went straight through me. "No," I said carefully. Adults are dealing with adult things. She looked at me for a long moment. That's what they always say right before they make it my fault. I had no pretty sentence for that, so I gave her the only clean one I had. It should never have been yours to carry. She nodded once, barely, and went upstairs. At the kitchen counter, the blue notebook waited. I did not write what I believed. Renee had taught me better. I wrote what had happened. Dean received petition, stated trust was used to protect Maddie's present. Transfers under review include business account connected to Durham property. Then I added one sentence for myself, not for court. Some men still with a ski mask. Some still with a father's voice. Dean chose the dining room. That told me he wanted theater. The same room where Patricia had made Maddie read a letter she did not write now held a manila folder, 2 glasses of water, and my husband sitting at the head of the table like he had bought the right to judge me. "Natalie," he said, "we need to be practical." Practical was what people called cruelty when they wanted it to sound mature. I sat across from him but did not reach for the folder. About what? Our marriage. The word marriage sounded strange in his mouth. Too formal for the nights I had waited up with dinner cooling in the oven. Too clean for a house where his daughter apologized in secret. Dean opened the folder and slid several pages towards me. "Renee can review it, of course. I'm not trying to blindside you." But he was. Men who said that usually had already aimed. I looked down. Separation agreement. His voice softened, polished smooth. "You deserve stability. I know this has been difficult." "This?" His eyes flickered. The tension, the misunderstandings, the way things have escalated. I turned a page. The financial terms were generous at first glance. More generous than I expected. Enough equity from the house, a clean division of retirement contributions. No drawn-out fight over furniture, cars, or savings. Then I reached the paragraph that explained the generosity. I would acknowledge that I had no established caregiving role in Madison Harlan's life. I would state that I had no personal knowledge of any inappropriate decision regarding her counseling. I would agree that I had no reasonable concern about the Meredith Reed Harlan Education and Welfare Trust. I would not discuss private Harlan family matters with third parties, institutions, school representatives, church members, or media. I read it twice. Then I looked at Dean. "You want me to sign myself out of the truth?" His jaw tightened. "I want peace." "No, you want silence with a notary stamp." He leaned back, trying to look wounded instead of cornered. "This is a fair offer. It is hush money. It is dignity." I almost smiled. Dignity doesn't come from hush money. Dean's face hardened in stages. First, the husband disappeared. Then the salesman. What remained was a frightened man, angry that fear had not made me obedient. "You have no standing with Maddie," he said. "No legal claim, no blood, no history before me." I never claimed otherwise. Then why destroy everything? Because everything you are protecting was built on her pain. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it. Patricia, of course. He did not answer, but he did not have to. Her presence lived in the room anyway, in the polished wood, in the careful language, in every sentence designed to make me feel ungrateful for refusing a bribe. Dean lowered his voice. "You can leave gracefully, Natalie." "Gracefully," I repeated. "Is that what Patricia called it?" His silence answered. I pushed the papers back. "I will let Renee review it, but I am not signing anything that says I did not see what I saw." "You're making a mistake." "No, I think I finally understand the one you all keep making." He stood. "And what is that?" "You keep thinking love means ownership." Something moved in the hallway. I turned. Maddie stood half hidden near the stairs in an oversized sweatshirt, her hair pulled into a messy knot. Her face was still, but her eyes had caught enough. Dean saw her and changed instantly. "Madison, go upstairs." She looked at the folder on the table. "Are you leaving?" The question was for me. I chose each word carefully. Your dad and I are talking about grown-up decisions. She flinched. That's what people say when they already decided. Dean snapped. Go to your room. Maddie went, but slower than before. When a door closed upstairs, Dean gathered the papers with sharp hands. No one will remember you were here, he said. That one landed. Not because I needed a monument, because I had spent 3 years doing the invisible work that keeps a child alive in a house full of adults congratulating themselves. I stood and put on my coat. I don't need everyone to remember me, I said. I need one child to remember she wasn't alone. Dean looked at me like he hated that sentence, because some part of him knew it would outlive every lie in that folder. I drove to a 24-hour diner off Glenwood Avenue and ordered coffee I did not want. Under the yellow light, I opened the blue notebook and wrote the only fact that mattered. Dean offered separation agreement requiring false statements about Maddie, therapy, trust concerns, and silence. Then I added beneath it, I will not purchase my freedom with her erasure. The event was called Protecting Children After Loss. First Covenant's hall smelled of weak coffee and lemon bars. Brooke ran check-in with a smile polished enough to hide every email she had sent. Dean stood beside Meredith's photograph, accepting sympathy like business cards. I came because Renee said absence would look like guilt. Stand in the back, she had warned. Do not give them a scene. So I stood near the coat rack in a black dress, quiet enough to disappoint everyone waiting for me to break. Maddie sat in the third row, between Dean and Patricia, hands folded in her lap. She looked less like a granddaughter than a witness waiting to breathe. After the pastor prayed, Patricia took the microphone. Cream suit, pearl earrings, silver hair brushed into place. When Meredith passed, she began, our family learned that grief does not end when the funeral flowers are cleared away. Heads nodded. She spoke about protecting children from confusion, honoring a mother's wishes, and keeping unstable influences from reopening wounds. She never said my name. Brooke watched from the refreshment table. Dean looked down, playing the suffering father. Then Patricia lifted one hand toward Maddie. A child who has lost her mother deserves clean lines. She deserves to know who truly belongs to her. Maddie's shoulders stiffened. Patricia continued. Sometimes outsiders confuse care with control. Sometimes they mistake access for family. But a child knows who is safe. My fingernails pressed into my palm. Do not give them a scene. Then Patricia turned fully toward Maddie. Isn't that right, sweetheart? That was a mistake. Until then, Maddie had been decoration, proof of Patricia's kindness. But Patricia asked her to become a witness again. Maddie stood. People smiled at first, expecting a thank you or a sentence about Grandma Patty. Her face was white. Her voice was not. Then why did you tell me Grandpa Sam didn't want me? The hall lost sound. Patricia's smile froze. Madison, honey, this is not the time. Maddie looked at Dean. Did he send cards? Dean opened his mouth, but no answer came out. Maddie turned back to Patricia. You said he stayed away because he cared about Mom's money more than me. A woman in the front row lowered her program. Patricia stepped down and reached for Maddie's arm. Sweetheart, you're upset. Maddie pulled back. Not far, just enough. That movement changed the room more than shouting could have. I did not call her name. I did not make myself the center of her courage. Maddie looked around the hall, seeing adults who had been told one story, now waiting for another. Then she walked down the aisle, past Dean, past Patricia, past Brooke and her ruined smile. She stopped beside me. She did not hug me. She did not take my hand. She did not call me anything. She simply stood where everyone could see she had chosen the only person in the room who had not asked her to perform. Patricia still held the microphone. For once, all her sweetness had nowhere to go. I kept my voice low. You don't have to fix this for anyone. Maddie stared forward. I know, she whispered. And that was the first time I believed she did. The courthouse in Wake County smelled like wet coats, floor wax, and coffee burned down to its last warning. I sat behind Renee, not at the center of anything, because this was still not my case. Gordon Miles represented Samuel. The trust belonged to Maddie's future. Dean had managed it. Patricia had guarded the story around it. I was there because I had seen pieces no bank record could explain. Dean arrived in a charcoal suit, looking like a man who had spent the morning practicing humility in the mirror. Patricia sat behind him with her purse in her lap, pearls shining under the courtroom lights. Brooke stayed near the aisle, pale and stiff, as if good posture could erase emails. Maddie was not placed on display. That mattered to me. Doctor. Elaine Porter had made sure of it. A child should not have to bleed in public just because adults lied in private. The first testimony came quietly. Dr. Porter explained that Maddie still needed grief counseling, not occasional family speeches about strength. She said pressure to choose sides could deepen grief, especially when a dead parent's memory was used as a loyalty test. Patricia lowered her eyes then, but not in shame, in calculation. Linda Holloway testified next. She did not attack anyone. She simply described the family context sent to St. Albans, the repeated warnings from Brooke, the way concern had slowly become a file around my name. Brooke whispered, "That's not fair." The judge looked up once. She stopped whispering. Then Gordon Miles began with the trust. Not drama, numbers. Payments marked housing stability, educational environment improvement, family support expense. The words sounded harmless until bank records showed where some of that money landed. Not therapy, not school support, not Maddie's volleyball fees. A Harlan-linked business account, a dorm property deal, a lease that had been slipping away. Dean's attorney said the money had supported the household Maddie lived in. Gordon adjusted his glasses. If Madison's stability was the purpose, why was her therapy discontinued while funds continue moving toward Mr. Holland's commercial exposure? Dean stared at the table. For the first time since I had known him, silence did not protect him. It accused him. Then came the emails. Samuel must stay out until Durham is stabilized. Patricia's name was on that chain. Another email followed, shorter and colder. Natalie is useful with the girl, but she must never become credible. I felt Renee's hand touch my sleeve under the table. Not comfort exactly. More like a warning to stay still. I did. Patricia's face did not change, but her fingers tightened around her purse strap. Last came Meredith's letter. Samuel had kept it folded inside a Bible for 4 years. Gordon read only the part that mattered. If anything happens to me, Maddie needs both sides of her family. No one who loves her should ask her to hate someone else for them. The room did not gasp. Real truth rarely needs applause. I looked at Dean. His face had gone gray around the mouth. Patricia looked smaller, not weaker, just exposed without her beautiful language wrapped around her. For years, they had spoken for Meredith. They had used her name like a locked gate. Now Meredith had spoken for herself. The judge asked Dean a simple question. Did you believe the trust authorized these transfers? Dean swallowed. I believed I was protecting my daughter's home. Gordon looked down at the records, then back up. And when your daughter asked for support for school activities, why was she told to wait? Dean did not answer. That was the sound I remembered most from that day. Not crying, not anger. The sound of a man discovering that polished words cannot balance a ledger. When we left the courtroom, Samuel stood by the window, one hand against the sill. He looked as if winning had cost him something too. I walked past Dean without speaking. Patricia said my name once. Natalie. I turned. For once, she had no dear, no sweetheart, no soft church voice. Only my name. I said, "You don't honor the dead by controlling the living." Then I kept walking. Behind me, the courthouse doors opened and closed, and the cold February air felt cleaner than mercy. The court did not send Dean to jail. People outside stories like ours want handcuffs and headlines. Real consequences in families like the Harlans were quieter. Quiet could cut deeper. Dean was suspended from acting alone over Meredith's trust. An independent trustee would review every transfer and every polished phrase that had turned Maddie's future into Dean's bridge loan. He sat still while the order was read, not with dignity, with calculation. He would have to repay whatever the accounting confirmed as improper. Until then, every decision tied to Maddie's money had to pass through someone who did not owe Patricia obedience or Dean's sympathy. He could no longer call selfishness stability and expect the room to nod. Patricia's order came next. She was not barred from loving her granddaughter, but she was barred from interfering with Maddie's therapy, school decisions, and legal matters. She could not call counselors to clarify family values. She could not pressure Madison about Samuel Reed. Patricia listened with her chin lifted. It was the face she wore when she wanted a room to believe she stood above it. For once, no room followed. Brooke lost her place at St. Albans committees within a week. The school called it a conflict of interest review. In Raleigh, that meant, we're not saying scandal, but step away from the donor table. Linda Holloway called me herself. Natalie, she said, the school is revising its internal notes. It should have been handled with more care. That was not a public apology. But my name had been removed from the little cage Brooke built around it. Dean's Durham deal collapsed before March. Wade Keller moved on. The business lunches grew shorter. Men who once slapped Dean on the back now offered polite nods. Patricia still attended First Covenant every Sunday, dressed perfectly. But another woman chaired the spring fundraiser. No one announced why. They simply stopped asking her. For Patricia, silence from polite society was not emptiness. It was exile. Samuel did not get Maddie overnight. Dr. Porter recommended slow contact, first through therapy sessions, then short supervised visits. Samuel accepted every condition. The first time Maddie called him Grandpa Sam, it happened after therapy. He had brought old photographs, not as proof, not as bait, just as something that belonged to her. Maddie took the envelope and said, "Thanks, Grandpa Sam." Samuel turned toward the window so she would not see his eyes. I pretended not to see either. As for me, I filed for divorce. Dean wanted the record to say irreconcilable differences, as if two adults had drifted apart. Renee let him have the phrase. "We know what it means," she told me. "We don't need the paper to carry all the blood." On my last night in the Harlan house, I packed only what was mine: books, work shoes, the blue notebook, and a chip mug Maddie had used when she had the flu. Downstairs, Dean stood by the front door. "You got what you wanted," he said. I looked past him at the staircase, where Maddie had once watched adults decide what her grief was worth. "No," I said. "She got back what you should never have taken." Dean had no answer. Dean met me outside Renee's office on the day the divorce papers were signed. The Raleigh sky was bright and cold. He looked thinner, suit hanging loose. "My mother pushed too hard," he said. "She did," I answered. Relief crossed his face too soon. "And you let her." His mouth tightened. I was scared. The house, the Durham deal, Maddie finding out I wasn't the father she thought I was. "That fear explains why you lied," I said. "It doesn't erase what your lies did to her." For once, no salesman came to rescue him. I walked away without hating him. Hate required closeness I no longer had to give. My new place was a small townhouse near the hospital, with a back porch just wide enough for lavender pots. I bought used furniture, hung no wedding photos, and learned my front door could close without dread. I did not get rich. I did not become Maddie's legal parent. I did not replace Meredith. The victory was quieter. I could sleep without listening for footsteps. Maddie kept seeing Dr. Porter. Dean remained her father, but his money choices were watched now. If he wanted a larger voice in her care, he had to show up in therapy. Patricia still went to First Covenant every Sunday, but another woman chaired the spring fundraiser, and another handled donor letters. Nobody shunned Patricia loudly. They simply stopped treating her goodness as a fact. That was the punishment she understood. Samuel came back slowly. First therapy sessions, then lunch at a diner, then one Saturday trip to Asheville when the leaves turned red and gold. Maddie told me about it afterward at my kitchen table. "Grandpa Sam showed me pictures of Mom in college," she said. "She had terrible bangs." I smiled. "A lot of us survived terrible bangs." "She burned apple pie." "Sounds human." She looked at me. "Grandma Patty always made her sound perfect." "Perfect people are hard to miss," I said. "Real people are easier to love." The next week, she texted me from the cemetery. "Can you come with me?" I drove over without asking why. Meredith's grave sat beneath a maple tree. Maddie stood before it holding white tulips. I stopped several yards away. "This is your space," I said. She nodded and turned back to the headstone. I could not hear what she told her mother. Some conversations should not be witnessed just because you help someone reach them. After a while, Maddie came back. "Dr. Porter says I don't have to choose who I love." "She's right." Maddie looked back at the grave. "You're still not my mom." The words did not cut anymore. "I know." Her eyes were wet, but her voice held. "But you're Natalie." That was all. No movie ending, no miracle. Just my name without a wall around it. Family should never be a courtroom where children are forced to testify for the adults who failed them. Real love does not demand ownership. It gives safety, truth, and room to breathe. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like for the channel. If you have any thoughts or advice, share them in the comments. And tell us what region you are listening from. Thank you for staying until the end. I wish you good health, steady peace, and I'll see you again in the next story on Revenge Glow.